Hello, welcome to the pod. It's Bryan and Ryan, and it is the first weekend of March Madness in the books. I'm Brian Houston. That's Ryan Peterson. How you doing, Ryan?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. A little basketball cross-eyed at this point, but I have to tell you that in all my years of watching college basketball, both as a fan and as somebody that covered it for a while, it's the craziest tournament I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. It was funny because of COVID, because of a shortened season, you just didn't really know what to expect. But this is why the NCAA tournament is my favorite thing, because you have these moments. And look, even if the team gets bounced in the next round, it's that one moment that those kids have of shocking the world. And we've seen a bunch of them. And I think I saw, if you do the cumulative score of the seeds left, it's like the biggest number it's ever been or in a long time. And the upsets, and then, I mean, having a team like Oral Roberts get to the Sweet 16, it's just fun. It makes it enjoyable. It's why we watch. And it's been one of the more exciting tournaments I can remember.
It was incredible. The first day, your bracket's already destroyed, uh, and just to show you how weird it is, I'm tied for first in the bracket I'm in, and I'm at 92.1%. But I don't know how. I've already lost one of my final four teams. I had it going to the final four: Gonzaga, Illinois, Baylor, and Alabama. Well, and Illinois, I felt probably as strong about as anybody. And Illinois goes out and just gets boat raced against Loyola Chicago on Sunday. And I'm going, oh, okay. So the couple of things to take away from this. Number one, what was your favorite moment? For me, it was Abilene Christian beating Texas. To have a 15, is that right? 15? Yeah. I think that's right. Beating a
No, they were
3.
a 14. They were a
Okay.
14.
14,
Oral Roberts was the 15. Yeah.
14 beating a 3. And this is reminiscent for us of when Stephen F. Austin beat VCU for the first win in NCAA tournament history for SFA. And having covered Abilene Christian when they used to be in the same conference with SFA, it's you can kind of relate to what this must mean to that program, because 5 years ago, that program was about as bad a D2 program as you could find. And now they're Division One, and this could be the thing that jettisons them to becoming a regular basketball power, like a mid-major like SFA.
Well, I think the thing that makes this one even more different and impressive than the SFA win is they've only been a D1 program for what, 4 or 5 years.
Right.
I mean, they're in the Southland with SFA. Now they're moving to the WAC with SFA. But they didn't beat a VCU. They beat Texas. And Texas
Although
this year.
both teams coached by Shaka Smart.
Yeah, exactly. But so there's the common theme there. But they beat Texas, who had a very high seed, who people thought maybe this was the year they make a run. You questioned it last week that you weren't buying it in terms of Texas, and sure enough. And that the one thing about that game I will say though, Brian, it was hard to watch. Like, it was ugly. It was a rock fight. The crazy thing about that game, ACU had 27 more shots than Texas. That is nuts. And then they still only won, by the free throw at the end. I saw some people complaining about the foul call. It was clearly a foul. I mean, the Texas guy fouled the kid when he rebounded it. Didn't need to. But really cool for ACU. I have some friends that are ACU alums, and it was cool for them to get to experience that. Obviously, they crashed back down to earth on Monday, but still something that they'll never forget. And that could be the kind of game win that will propel them to be, maybe a solid mid-major, and they'll be back again.
And the other thing about it, you mentioned it being a rock fight. Texas turned the ball over 23 times, 23 turnovers in that ball game. And so Texas came into the tournament with everybody saying, well, this gets all the heat off of Shaka, and he's in like Flint now, and Texas, we're back. How many times have we heard this? Okay. And now you're already starting to see the grumbling. I see it on Twitter, the grumbling about Shaka Smart now after the way they lost to Abilene Christian. I think if they'd lost to
Yeah.
anybody else, it wouldn't be that big a deal. But to lose to a team in your own state that had zero basketball tradition or reputation coming into the game, it's just turning the gas up under him again.
Yeah. You had asked me what my favorite moment was. I don't know that I had a favorite moment. As fun as this tournament has been, there hasn't been, I'm trying to think, like crazy buzzer beaters.
No.
One thing that stood out to me was, so Illinois loses to Loyola. And, typically if a 1 seed gets bounced in the second round, something crazy has happened. Like the other team, the 8 or 9 seed has hit a barrage of threes. And it's just one of those kind of fluky one-off performances, and you don't think it would happen again. Well, watching Loyola play Illinois, Loyola was better the entire, there was no fluke. It wasn't about 3-pointers. Loyola just dictated the whole game. They led from start to finish. And watching that game, I'm like, if these teams played 10 times, I think it would be competitive. So I think what was crazy to me was that Loyola looked like they were the 1 seed, and it wasn't some fluky hitting a bunch of threes. I was just shocked that Illinois looked just so discombobulated. And Loyola does have Final Four experience. People forget that. Their big man Krutwig was a freshman that year and led them to a Final Four. Experience does matter. But that was crazy. It was cool seeing North Texas win. Their first round game. There were just so many cool stories. It's cool seeing Oral Roberts get to the Sweet 16. I think the biggest story though out of this, and I always hear, well, you shouldn't get so worried about the preseason rankings, but to me the preseason rankings are important because they set up your point of view for the rest of the season. And the Big 10 and the Big 12 have been heralded all season as the best. They fooled me. And then Brian, we get to the two conferences combined had 16 teams. Out of those 16, only 2 are going to the Sweet 16. Michigan, who is a 1 seed, and Baylor, who's a 1 seed. So, I mean, they should be there, but everybody else is out. And some of them embarrassingly, with embarrassing exits. So pretty crazy to see what everyone had said were by far the 2 best leagues getting hammered. Meanwhile, the Pac-12, they've got 4 teams in the Sweet 16, and they've looked dominant.
Yeah, I was going to echo exactly what you said. I think that the problem is we see, these big conferences so much on television, and in the COVID year where they had a very limited non-conference schedule, they just saw them they saw each other just beating up on each other. And when Ohio State comes in, and there was argument that maybe they could have as many as 3 number 1 seeds with Ohio State, Illinois, and Michigan, and then to watch Ohio State go out round 1, and then to watch Illinois go out, that quickly, the number 1 seed, then that tells you, first of all, you can't really take into consideration conference strength. You got to go team by team. But then again, nobody saw any of those 3 teams going out as early as the 2 of them did. Michigan, on the other hand, watching the LSU game, and we're recording this on Tuesday morning, that was one of the best games I've seen in this tournament.
It was fun.
But Michigan,
fun.
Listen, LSU is athletic. They are really athletic, but Michigan was right there with them.
Yeah.
And it was impressive to watch how Michigan withstood the onslaught in the first half and then kind of took control in the second half. And they look like the Michigan that everybody was talking about prior to their star player getting hurt. And now they look like a formidable team. The one thing that has stood up, and then the Big 12, just like you said, to have all these teams and to talk about how great this conference is, and to talk about how balanced and competitive, and it was a balanced and competitive conference. But when it's all said and done, the best team, the cream rose to the top, and everybody else went home. And Baylor proves to be as good as everybody, as your eyes tell you when you watch them play. They are by far the best team in the Big 12. Cade Cunningham, as good as he was, Oklahoma State goes out, and they kind of go out,
Yeah,
it wasn't even
really
close.
didn't look good.
So there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. This tournament, because of COVID, it may have been more of an advantage for the mid majors than anybody, because it gave them an opportunity. There were so many disruptions in the season for so many teams, and to see some of these mid majors get in there is really kind of fun. Now, when it's all said and done, I think that it still looks like Gonzaga is the best team in the tournament, even though I mean they've had no difficulty. The 25 straight wins now by double figures, and that includes 2 wins in the tournament now. That's just insane.
Yeah, they and that was the thing. At no point, I mean, Oklahoma, and that was the thing. Oklahoma didn't play bad. I mean, Austin Reeves, their 5th-year senior, played well. They hung in there, but it was like every time Gonzaga would just come right back. Going to be interesting. That Gonzaga was my pick. I know it's a boring pick, but it's funny. Brian, there's still people that don't believe in Gonzaga. I don't know what they have to do.
Well,
and I realize they play in a conference. Once you get into conference play, that they don't have to bring it every night, but they did play a formidable non-conference. They were one of the schools that did, and they did that on purpose. It got them a 1 seed. And I mean, we had talked last week, all the teams in their bracket, they had already played most of them and beat them. So, and now you look in their region, the 2 seed Iowa got crushed. The 3 seed Kansas got crushed. I look in that region, I think maybe their biggest threat could be USC.
or Oregon. They're both good.
Yeah. But whoever wins that game,
Yeah,
because USC will play Oregon now, which should be fun. That should be a blast of a game.
yeah.
But whoever wins that game will stand in Gonzaga's way, assuming Gonzaga wins the next round, to go to the Final Four. And that could be the big one because all the big boys got knocked off.
And just for bragging rights from that region, I did pick Ohio to beat Virginia. Just letting you know, okay? And so that's one I hit for the 15 that I missed. So I'm just going to take credit for that one.
Yeah, but you're in first in your bracket, right? So I'm actually I have a comfortable lead in our bracket pool.
Boy,
all my Final Four still alive, so I
so
feel
it's
pretty
you and
good.
your daughters or what?
No, it's the church staff. So Danny Leffelholtz, he asked for trouble asking me to be in it. So
Well, yeah, but the problem is those guys, they're in church on Sunday. They don't watch basketball. Then they miss all these games, or at least that's what they'll
yeah, but
tell you.
typically it's the woman that never watches that ends up winning the bracket. So.
I'm picking this team because of the uniform.
Right.
So now that what you have remaining, I'm curious as to if anything changes as far as who you think might win this thing. I mean, or who gets into the Final Four now. What are your thoughts? If you had to do it over again now, based on what you've got for the Sweet 16, anybody that jumps out to you that suddenly you say, this team could win it all?
I think so. I still feel great about Gonzaga picking them to win. I did have the one team that intrigues me, and they've looked better than I even thought they were, is USC. I had them get to the Sweet 16. I did not believe in Kansas. I thought they would get bounced. So I had USC getting to the Sweet 16, but now I really I mean, the way with their Twin Towers, they're so athletic and good defensively. You're seeing with these Pac-12 teams, if they hit the 3, they're just really tough to beat. So I do think USC could bust a bracket getting to the Final Four. Michigan impressed me a lot. There was a lot of talk going into the tournament that they were the weakest of the 1 seeds. And if there was going to be a 1 seed that got bounced in the opening 2 rounds, it would be Michigan. But they showed, and you mentioned them earlier, they showed me a lot because LSU's good. They gave them all they could handle. And, LSU was in the double bonus with like 14 minutes left in the game, and Michigan still survived. So I think Michigan actually is much stronger than they looked. And Alabama, you picked them for the Final Four, so did I. After that performance yesterday, I feel good about them as well. I don't know that I have a different thought on anybody else in terms of what I thought going into it. But I think that Oregon USC game might be one of the most entertaining games of the tournament.
I will tell you that I'm really keeping my eye on the Syracuse-Houston game. First of all, Houston has not played that well. They shot free throws terribly in the
And
last
so, and
game.
I'm interested because I actually have Houston in the Final Four. I was trying to make one pick that was kind of different. I have Houston in the Final Four because defense and rebounding always matter. And you said they were really terrible in their last game against Rutgers, and they still found a way. So if they play a good game, then I think they're going to win. Syracuse is interesting because, and you've seen this longer than I have, Bryan. It seems like whenever, it doesn't matter if Syracuse is a double-digit seed, because of that zone, teams from a new conference, they don't know how to play it, and they can't handle it.
And that's exactly why I'm saying keep an eye on this game, because if you'll remember, there was a great deal of discussion about whether Syracuse was even going to make the tournament. I mean, they
Yeah.
were one of the last four in, but they have gotten hot. Buddy Boeheim shoots the lights out. And by the way, how is it a guy that's the coach is almost 80 years old has a 20-year-old son? I just want to ask. Okay. I mean,
No comment.
one that can shoot the lights out, right? That's just,
shouldn't he be his grandson?
thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking. But apparently he's got three sons playing college basketball right now. So you go Jim Boeheim. But the thing about it is that zone defense, nobody else plays it. And it's your basic classic Syracuse team. I don't know why they struggled in the regular season, because they are so long. And when they play that 2-3 zone, as long as they are, I see Houston having a real difficult time, against that zone. I'm not saying Houston's going to lose the game, but I mean, Syracuse is a nightmare matchup for anybody when they're hot, and they are hot right now.
Yeah.
And so that's a game that I'm really curious about, that ball game, because I think that could be a real interesting game, because Syracuse, again, is just, year after year, they've been doing it forever. They'll get a team, if they've got a sharpshooter, like Boeheim is right now, and then and playing that zone defense. I mean, it's just that combination usually goes a long way for Syracuse in tournaments.
It is crazy though, because they weren't great all year. And you look at the ACC, I mean, Duke didn't even make the tournament. North Carolina got crushed in the first round. Virginia got smacked in the first round. It's not like the ACC was loaded this year. This was one of the worst years I can remember for the ACC. So it's just weird. But yeah, it almost makes you wonder, should you just develop a system that if you can just get in, it's going to give you a chance each round in the tournament. But yeah, I still like Houston. I'm going to stick with them because I have them in the Final Four, but I am nervous because Syracuse, that 2-3 zone, if you're not hitting shots, you're in trouble. Now, if you're having a good day shooting, and my thing is Houston hasn't shot well, so maybe now they're due to have a game that shoots well. But yeah, Syracuse is a scare.
The other game that I find pretty interesting, even though I think I was really impressed with Michigan, they got to play Florida State. And Florida State's the all airport team, as they call them. You see these guys, they're all, like 9 feet tall and look like tight ends, and the physicality of that team, and they have not played well in the tournament to win the 2 games they've won. They really haven't played as well as they played during the season. And so they're due to start playing some pretty good basketball. They haven't shot the ball well.
They did impress me against Colorado though, because Colorado had shot the lights out and looked really good. I thought Colorado had a great chance to get to the Sweet 16 for the first time. But they're so, you said it, long and athletic, and they pressure like the full court. I mean, and they get out up on you. They extend their defense. They don't sit back, and it's just, I mean, it has to be exhausting to play against their defense. So you are right. There's a couple really good Sweet 16 games. Michigan, Florida State, maybe the best, right there with Oregon and USC. But Michigan showed me a lot, though, getting knocked down
Yeah.
and getting back up. So that's going to be a great game. I think Michigan, though, is so good offensively. I don't think Florida State will intimidate them with their athleticism like they did Colorado. But Coach Hamilton at Florida State, he's had such a great career. I don't think he's been to the Final Four, has he?
I don't think so.
This could be his best shot too.
Yeah, and then lastly, and we'll move on from basketball. The Baylor Villanova game intrigues me because I think Jay Wright may be the best basketball coach in the country, and so I'm curious. As good as Baylor is playing, you just wonder what Jay Wright may be able to throw at them to get them off balance or whatever. I don't think Baylor's going to lose the game, but Villanova's managed to overcome injury and continue to survive and advance. And I like Jay Wright. He is an excellent coach.
Oh yeah, he's on another level. Probably, top 2 or 3 coaches in college basketball in terms of what he has sustained at Villanova. But in this regard, if I'm Baylor, they're going to be focused and not worried, but I'm not worried. I think Baylor's clearly the better team. I think one thing Nova has benefited from this year is a much easier path. They've gotten to play 2 double-digit seeds. Now, yes, we've seen some upsets, so you got to play the team that's in front of you and beat them, but they haven't really been challenged. Baylor is a whole nother animal than what Villanova had to see the opening weekend. I remember we were talking a few weeks ago, Brian, when Baylor had been off several days because of COVID, and you had asked, do you think it would affect? And my thing was, I thought they were going to be okay because all of it happened as they were going into the conference tournament, because it allowed them to get the kinks out. And we saw, they didn't play great, and they got knocked out in the Big 12 tournament. But I think it was good to get them ready, because it's better to happen then than now. And I think that they're positioned well, and I think this is a good matchup for them. And I still like Baylor.
The other big story, we'll move on from basketball. The other big story is this wild, crazy, every day it gets crazier story about Houston Texans quarterback for now, Deshaun Watson. The story had always been, up until about 2-3 weeks ago, I want out of Houston, and there's nothing that's going to, be able to salvage that relationship. And then suddenly there's one attorney in Houston has now found like 14 massage experts to come out and file civil suit against Deshaun Watson, all with the same claim, basically, that he did things inappropriately during a massage. First of all, you mentioned it when we talked before we started recording, civil suits. And then number 2, 14 and 24 charges, and not one of them went to the police.
Is that what the number is now?
I think it is something like 24. But honestly, who's counting at this point?
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me uncomfortable talking about things like this. Obviously, the women.
I love talking about stuff like this. This is just normal.
Obviously, stuff. The women. Well, because the women need to be heard. Obviously, if something happened, it needs to be. We need to know, and he should be punished. But civil suits always, my radar goes up, because a civil suit, again, is not, for people that don't understand, a civil suit is not a criminal trial. So if he lost these civil lawsuits, he's not looking at jail time. It's simply a lot, having to pay the settlements. And to have this many all at once is crazy. The timing is just weird. I guess when I would really start to question, okay, this could be trouble, is if, and I know the attorney has said he was going to be presenting a bunch of stuff to Houston PD for them to look at criminal charges, then I think that's when I would be like, okay, what's going on here? Because if there's enough to pursue criminal action, but it's the timing, Brian, is crazy. He's trying to get a trade. It's completely out of nowhere. And the other thing about Deshaun Watson is this goes against everything he's been about since he's been in the league. Like, he's a face of the league. He does so much for the community. He's so generous with his time, with his money. It's the complete opposite. I mean, when he signed his big contract last year, we sitting here talking about how he does everything right, and you'd want him to be the face of your franchise. So definitely concerning, disappointing that this has happened. I have no idea what to think because, we don't know what happened or if anything happened. I'd like to hope to think it's definitely didn't happen because I think a lot of Deshaun Watson, but I don't know how this is going to end. And on the football side, our team's going to want to, how does this complicate trades? Would he face suspension from the league? There's so many factors, and on this story, you have no idea what's going to happen.
One of the craziest conspiracy theories about this is that this attorney may be such a big Houston Texans fan that he's trying to kill Watson's trade value by doing this, because who would want to take a chance on? I mean, the whole thing is just nuts. Like you said, Deshaun Watson has had this squeaky clean reputation, and this attorney, Mike Florio in Pro Football Talk, or the NBC Sports website, mentioned a couple of things that make a lot of sense. He said, Busby, the attorney's last name is Busby, has used some very aggressive tactics. By the way, it's 14 cases with 24 total claims, all by Busby's firm and his clients. There's not another lawyer or another firm involved, which is unusual. And most of these law firms, I mean, listen, there's a lawyer on every corner, especially in a city the size of Houston. So it's just a bit odd that none of all of these people making claims against Watson, that none of them are being represented by anybody other than this one particular attorney. At the same time, Watson and his camp have stayed extremely quiet, which I guess is the smart strategy, but in the court of public opinion, staying this quiet is not helping.
He did release the one statement,
but that's it.
But that's the thing. Outside of that, I don't know what else he's supposed to do. I mean,
yeah.
And if you're innocent, I mean, I think was his attorney Rusty Hardin?
Yes, and Rusty Hardin's he's a big hitter. Yes,
and Rusty Hardin has represented the biggest of the biggest names, especially in the Houston area. So he has a good lawyer, and I'm sure Rusty's just saying keep quiet. You didn't do anything, but yeah, this thing was just out of left field when it first came out. I still can't believe it, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. How long is this? Is this going to be a long drawn out process? And if it is long and drawn out, is the league, would he face any repercussions from the league?
Listen, they're looking at this hard because they got that conduct policy, and so they're absolutely taking a hard look at it.
Well, and sexual assault, I mean, this isn't, this is heavy. This is big stuff. So, that I don't know what's going to happen. The whole thing's sad to me.
It is sad, but the one thing we have learned over the course of the last few years, going back to the Tiger Woods situation, is that we have learned anything is possible. Anything is, as sad as that is to say, anything is possible, and we'll just leave it right there. Ryan, great to talk to you this week. We'll look forward to talking to you next week, as we will then know who is going to be in the Final Four. And it's been great to have a tournament. My heart goes out to VCU for not being able to play because of COVID. That was terrible. But let's hope that doesn't happen as the tournament goes forward and we move into the Sweet 16. Any final words before we wrap up?
No, just it was so good to have basketball back. I know every year it was weird having the games Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, as opposed to Thursday through Sunday. But it was so fun because for me, it's like a holiday. Always that first round, the 2 days of the first round is a blast. So, and thanks to all the student athletes that have hung in there all season and that we can enjoy it. It was fun to see it back.
Ditto right here. Thanks very much for being with us. Thanks very much to you for watching, all 5 of you out there. We really appreciate it. Continue to subscribe to the channel and leave comments and share with your friends or your enemies, whichever way works for best for you. And we will talk to you next week. Thanks, Ryan.
Yep. See you, bud.